Good morning, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute or so. We want to make sure everyone has a chance to jump on this morning to our latest CMT Talking Transit webinar. Good morning. On behalf of Citizens for Modern Transit, I'd like to welcome you to our latest Talking Transit discussion on the proposed MetroLink Green Line project in the city of St. Louis. Before we begin the discussion, I'd like to welcome CMT board members who are online with us today. I know you can't see them, but they are here, and we want to thank them for their support and commitment to transit. This year, as we move into our 41st year of transit advocacy in the St. Louis region, we would not be able to do what we do without the help of our supporters and sponsors. So this morning, I'd like to say a special thanks to our CMT Platinum sponsors, including AARP in St. Louis, Bi-State Development, the City of Fairview Heights, Greater St. Louis Inc., HNTB, and the St. Clair County Transit District. Thank you to these companies and organizations, and as well as everyone else who has joined us for this important conversation about the future of public transit in the St. Louis region. We were lucky enough to host the mayor of the city of St. Louis, Tashara Jones, at our annual meeting on September 13th to discuss the future of transportation. The mayor commented on the importance of this project, stating, "The neighborhoods along this corridor need serious investment, and the MetroLink Green Line is that investment. Our goal is to not just move the needle. The goal is transformational change through transit investment. There is a time and a place for BRT and other transit options, but this is not the time or place. This is the time to think big and swing for the fences because the returns are so important to empower, develop, and transform our city for many years to come." So with those remarks in mind, we are excited to have the opportunity to host this conversation about this potentially transformational project that we're talking about. So first, I'd like to welcome our panelists this morning. We have with us Talby Roach, the President and CEO of Bi-State Development, Jared Boyd, the Chief of Staff for the City of St. Louis Mayor's Office, Leslie Gill, the President and CEO of Rung for Women, and Vivian Martin, the President of the St. Louis chapter of the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, otherwise known as COMTO, to discuss the impacts of this project, where we are to date, and what this looks like moving forward in the future. The proposed St. Louis MetroLink Green Line is set to include 10 stations and 5.6 miles of in-street light rail trains running from Jefferson Avenue at Chippewa Street in South St. Louis to Natural Bridge Avenue in North St. Louis, while connecting with the current MetroLink system via a transfer station. It was officially adopted by the East-West Gateway Council of Governments Board of Directors in February of this year as the locally preferred alternative. So welcome again to all of you, and thank you for joining us this morning to talk about this proposed light rail expansion. We're going to leave time at the end for questions and comments, but please feel free to add your questions to the chat box or the Q&A as we move through our conversation this morning. Each panelist will begin by providing overview remarks, and then we're going to open it up to that Q&A. We definitely want to have a dialogue about the impacts of the Green Line and what that future looks like. So let's jump right in with our President and CEO of Bi-State Development, Talby Roach, on the status of this project. Where are we to date? What is the price tag? What is the time frame? So Talby, welcome, and I'm going to turn it over to you to start us off this morning.
Thank you, Kim. All the really easy answers, right? So anyway, boy, what an exciting project. Very complicated. And I'm going to just try to kick us off with some really fundamental information. And I'm going to share my screen right now. Right. And can I get a little thumbs up from everybody about that? Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Kim. And I'm going to move into presentation mode. How about that? So that we can all see really well. Right. Obviously, so we're talking about a really exciting St. Louis Green Line, right? So let's just talk about those fundamental aspects. So we're talking about 5.6 miles. Right now, we're looking at about 10 stations. Travel time, very, very important for success of light rail in St. Louis, that it is automobile competitive. So end-to-end movement, right about 19 minutes. Let me just tell you, folks, that's excellent. One of the successes of light rail in St. Louis is to make it quick. We're talking about an average daily ridership right now at 5,200 folks a day, and residents within a quarter mile of the station of 28,900. We're talking about an O&M cost, in other words, what it costs to operate this segment, right around $6.5 million, which is affordable. And right now, a significant capital cost of $1.1 billion. All right. Let's talk about some of that money right now. So folks, let's just remember in the federal process, which we have now entered, called project development under the New Starts criteria, what we're shooting for is going to the feds for the majority of this money. And under that, we can go in and we'll be submitting for an FTA grant of 60% of that funding, right? And in that process, we have to show how it's affordable under these bases. But remember, this includes a 40% contingency, right? It's very important on the early aspects of this that the project is very conservative. And look, that's nearly 200 million a mile. That's quite a bit of money. Our target is much lower than that. We think we'll be closer to 850 to 900 million a mile, but it's too early in the project to do so. What we have to show our federal partners is that this is an affordable project under its current criteria. Remember, street running, no structures, no tunnels. And for instance, the Kansas City streetcar, which is a very comparable, came in at right around 125 million a mile. So we think that the target of close to 150 is really very reasonable. And so it is affordable under these fundamental pieces. So we already are putting some money aside in the existing taxing initiative from 2017, April 4th to be precise. And that money is being put aside by the city and is firewalled for that exclusive purpose for MetroLink and specifically a north-south corridor. So let's talk about that corridor. So we're showing this is the minimum operating segment, also called an MOS, and we're going all the way from Fairground Park up a Natural Bridge to the north, all the way down to Chippewa. We're talking about 10 stations right now, looking at different stationing options and so on. Very important that during this process that in order to bring a project that's on time and on budget, that we don't overstation. That's very important for a quick, impactful light rail line. One highlight that I want to make about this alignment is that we will have a transfer station there at Scott and Ewing Yard to the red and blue lines. And that's a really key component on the operating capacity of light rail lines all around the world. And you know, you're familiar with those big transfer stations and everywhere from London to Chicago to Los Angeles. A transfer station is how these systems work, and we're intending on building one there right at Scott and Ewing Avenue. So this is just a very, very rough concept, right? This could look very, very different than it is, but as a general idea, we're talking about a street running solution in Jefferson Avenue. Jefferson Avenue is extremely generous as far as capacity. There's nearly 6 lanes of right-of-way all the way from the north to the south. At some points, there's even more. There's as many as 7. So we have a great opportunity to really rethink of this full street solution that includes other options other than light rail, sidewalk enhancements, how are bicycles accessing this? I like to think of myself as a transportation professional. And transportation, when it works right, involves all of those different modes, including bicycle, pedestrian, buses, and trains, all working in concert with automobiles as well. So let's just talk very quickly about where we are timing wise. We are in what is called technically project development under the FTA criteria, and we're going through the environmental review and really key public outreach efforts. So looking at the design, having neighborhood design meetings. To this point, we have had over 40 neighborhood meetings since May of last year. Now we're going to have a lot more. And the idea is that we get out into the community, talk about those aspects. When we are able to have those important conversations in the communities, we can talk about things like sidewalks, how big folks want to see, where are the impacts on individual intersections. Very, very key conversations as we move on. But let's just talk very quickly about the NEPA process. Okay, so we're doing an environmental review, all of which then we have to take this environmental review and submit it to the federal government. And we will start to pick up partners from FTA as we move through this and manage the project together. And that includes that we are sure that the project does not significantly impact on a negative way environmental resources, low-income individuals, etc. All of these are required for us by the federal government to do a very comprehensive review of the impacts of this federal investment. And it includes a whole variety of things, including hazardous materials, short-term construction, transit and transportation, how the neighborhoods are impacted, everything from lighting to security. All of those aspects are seen within this scope. So we're going to have very active conversations and are having them. Now, that doesn't mean that I can give every single community everything they want, right? I can't do that because I still have to bring a project in for cost and make it reasonable. But if we have good active conversations and good meetings, I can give folks most of what they want. So let's just be sure that we're very cognizant about those conversations. So this is coordinated through Region 7 of FTA, which is out of Kansas City, and we are technically in the Section 106. So that includes the State Historic Preservation operation, and we're looking at all of the aspects of environmental impact, including noise, vibration, traffic analysis, etc. So a really technical kind of boring part. I'm sorry about being boring here, Kim, but I got to do it. And very key is picking up our partners. So in project development, one of the things that we are assigned is a PMOC, a project management operating consultant. And that is assigned from FTA so that we're moving together on the project. And the key component of that is not only the environmental review, but also the operating review and being sure that we are meeting all of our obligations to the federal government, that it's affordable and that the impacts are reasonable. And that's where we are right now as far as the project is concerned. I know I threw a lot at everybody here, and I apologize, but I wanted to just kick us off with some of those technical pieces and be sure that we all know, look, it's an exciting project. It's moving along. We're doing a lot of work, but there's still plenty of work to do.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you for that primer on where we are with the St. Louis Green Line. Just to clarify, if this project is not awarded federal funding, will it move forward?
No, we absolutely need under what is called the new, we are in a component called the new starts criteria and under the capital investment grant structure of FTA. And that contemplates funding between 50 and 60%. We are asking for 60% given really the demographics that we're hitting, which are tremendously favorable for this project. We are reaching a lot of neighborhoods that have been traditionally divested in over decades, African-American neighborhoods, neighborhoods of poverty that are the very people who will benefit from transit. So that will mean that our score under New Starts criteria will be very favorable.
Great. Thank you very much for clarifying that. So now let's turn to Jared Boyd with the City of St. Louis Mayor's Office to discuss the importance of this project to the current administration and to the city. Welcome, Jared.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you to everyone who's tuning in this morning, and thank you to our panelists. I want to start by talking about the Green Line and contextualizing the moment that we're in St. Louis. I have the benefit of working for a mayor and working with other leaders who are not afraid of doing big things in the region. And this is one of those big things. First, one of the big things we're taking on is public safety. Since Mayor Jones has been in office, homicides have gone down 40%. The types of professionals who do public safety have been diversified. So mental health workers, community violence interrupters, and other professionals are assisting the police in making St. Louis a safer place. We are also building a world-class 911 facility, the first state-of-the-art government building in over 2 decades. And of course, we are working with our partners at Bi-State to make sure that those riding public transportation are safe. You can't do big things without transportation. In addition to the Green Line, we have embarked on a $3 billion airport renovation project that is going to make it easier to get not just to and from places outside of the country, but really build our regional economy. We're putting over $300 million in transportation street projects, 46 million in arterial paving and calming. So making it safer and easier to get around St. Louis by car. But we realize driving is not the only way St. Louisans really should get from point A to point B. So we're working with Great Rivers Greenway on the Brick Line, which will assist in letting people use bicycle or walking to and from places. But along with all of those investments, working on the Green Line is imperative to the future of St. Louis. The mayor has also used over half of the ARPA allocation of $490 million on what we call an economic justice plan. And the goals of that plan are strengthening neighborhoods, closing the wealth gap, improving health and education outcomes, expanding the tax base, and growing the city's population. You cannot achieve any of those goals without improving public transportation, and having a Green Line certainly will allow us to reach or make it much easier for us to achieve those goals. So strengthening neighborhoods, we are investing dollars in remediating vacancy in a lot of the neighborhoods that are along the Green Line. But you can't just invest in housing. You can't just invest in infrastructure. You have to allow people to get from those new houses to their doctor's office, to their jobs, to opportunities. In terms of closing the wealth gap, you can't really talk about closing the wealth gap in 2024 without talking about the burden of car ownership and the burden of either owning a car or potentially living in a place where you have to take multiple transfers to get to a job. So families sometimes are forced to either overpay for transportation or pay in the sense of waiting for other forms of transportation that are not cars. Improving health and education outcomes. I think it's pretty clear that making it easier to get towards opportunity achieves that, and expanding the tax base and growing the city's population come with people wanting to live in areas that have world-class transportation. Whether we're talking about folks who are working class and recognize the burden of having a disjointed transportation system, or younger workers who have the opportunity to choose between St. Louis and other cities with better transportation and better built out transportation systems. We are competing for talent, and we have to invest in the people that live here in a way that makes it easier for them to achieve their dreams. And then ultimately growing the city's population. Like I said, that comes with doing the big things that include building the Green Line. So I've talked about billions of dollars and hundreds of millions of dollars, but I think it's important to also center this project on the people, on the families, on the neighborhoods that will be impacted and have their lives impacted. So I spend a lot of time in community. Uh, we are working with several neighborhoods near NGA on bringing about redevelopment that is community led. And in doing so, we have passed a bill that allows us to use eminent domain, which has traditionally been thought of as a negative tool, to help remediate some of the blight in those neighborhoods, some of the dilapidated properties in that neighborhood that have been held by out of town speculators. So I want to think about a woman, an older woman who might live in one of those neighborhoods, and think about how she's lived in that neighborhood for several years, seen better days where there was vibrancy on the street, activity on the street, and now there are vacant homes on that street and dilapidated properties on that street. And with the redevelopment plan, where we're going to be able to address some of the blight on those streets, you're going to see new houses built in that neighborhood. You're going to see new families in that neighborhood. Maybe her son or daughter is going to be able to move into one of those houses in that neighborhood and now have access to the MetroLink to get to and from their job. They may choose to have one car for the family, and choosing to have one car instead of two cars, that family can probably save over $1,000 a year, whether they put that towards saving for their kids' college education, retirement, or discretionary income. But having that green line access will open up generational possibilities for that family to live in that community as a family, to save money as a family. And you never know, maybe the money saved can help send one of the grandkids to college, maybe help another grandkid start a small business. So I think, like I said, it's important to not just think of the billions of dollars in macroeconomic impact, but the generational impact of this investment for families who have lived in these neighborhoods that have seen blight, disinvestment, and just lack of attention. So with that, I am again pleased to be here with you and happy to turn it over to my good friend Leslie Gill.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Talby. My name is Leslie Gill. I'm the president and CEO of Rung for Women, which is located in the historic Fox Park neighborhood. For those who may be joining us and slightly unfamiliar, we are literally nestled between Jefferson and Gravois. And we would be serviced by the Gravois and Sydney stop on the Green Line. And so, this is such an exciting conversation. I feel like I get to bring in the community voice. So Rung for Women is a career accelerator for women. We help women upskill and reskill for jobs now and in the future. Really excited about the investment from NGA, because we had the first Women in Geospatial curriculum co-designed with Maryville University. So many of our women are moving into jobs in geospatial, manufacturing, and other technology types of roles. And so we really focus on helping women move into careers where women have historically been underrepresented. And so all of the technology investments and geospatial investments that are coming as a result of NGA is super exciting for us. I'm obviously here to talk about the benefits of the Green Line. And for us, it would have an immediate impact. Having access, improving access to our campus. We would be just a couple blocks away from the stop. And it would allow us to serve more women, having reliable transportation to get to our campus, to be in person, to be in community, to get their training done here is a huge benefit for the audience that we serve. I also want to talk about our investment in this Fox Park neighborhood. So Rung for Women is a relatively young organization. We just opened our doors in March of 2021 and made a pretty sizable economic investment in this neighborhood to the tune of $20 million to build our campus. And since we have made Fox Park our home, we have seen a significant change in the neighborhood. So home prices in Fox Park have increased by approximately 16%. There's been substantial growth and density with new apartment buildings and condos. And, we feel like we have been able to really contribute to the revitalization of the Fox Park neighborhood, and only feel like that would be enhanced by the improved transportation that the Green Line will bring. Additionally, we decided to expand our campus about a year ago and now have community space. And so, again, another benefit to the neighborhood, to the region, a medium-sized gathering space where we've been able to host organizations like the League of Women Voters, the Fox Park Neighborhood Association, trivia nights, weddings, receptions, and having another transportation option to make gatherings on our campus more accessible only enhances our community benefit and the impact on the neighborhood. And, most importantly, the Green Line will help us directly connect to employers, many of which are new careers for the members and participants that we serve. And so that accessibility is incredibly important. Many of our members come from North City and North County. We serve about 60% of our members are women of color. And so this north-south investment obviously makes accessibility to our campus a real benefit, allows us to serve women, and most importantly, allows us to connect more women to new career opportunities, to be able to change the trajectory of their lives, their families' lives, and the next generation. To Jared's point, right? This is really about an investment in people. It's really about impact on lives and being able to change the trajectory of people's lives, especially in areas that have had historic disinvestment. And so for us, the Green Line is really exciting. It connects us to other employers in the region. In manufacturing, we have members who are working down at Procter & Gamble. And, this north-south expansion would allow better accessibility to get to those good paying jobs that are around the region. And then I will say, many of the priorities that come with this investment are priorities that we have for our people, for our employees, for the members that we serve. So this like access to social equity and making it easier to connect people is incredibly important. Individual well-being. I don't know that this is an aspect that has been talked about much, but getting people walking, moving, connecting. I know Jared mentioned the brick line and bicycling, but just this investment in well-being is also a result of the Green Line. And then just giving people more options to have personal financial responsibility. Jared talked about the savings that comes from perhaps only having one car. We see, women who come to our campus, and they're typically, or could be, one car breakdown away from spiraling back into extreme poverty. And so if they had access to a better transportation, a better public transportation option, the over reliability on a vehicle that may not be operable all the time and in good working condition just gives them options, right? And so for us, we want people to have access to opportunity. We want them to have options and to be able to really control their destiny. And so as a resident and a business owner and an organization that is deeply committed to investing in women and people and families, for us, the Green Line is a win-win. It really does improve the outcomes for the women that we serve, the families in our community, and the Fox Park neighborhood. So thank you for having me this morning. We are super excited about this project and the potential that it will have to change the economic trajectory for women in our community.
Well, thank you, Leslie, for that. That was great. And it's really interesting as someone who's on the ground in the corridor to hear all of your different perspectives on the benefits of public transit. As the advocacy organization, we're always talking about it's much more than that ride from point A to point B, and you hit on it directly. So thank you for giving us your perspective. So now we're going to turn to Vivian, and she is with the St. Louis chapter of the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. And she's going to be talking about the large scale capital project, what the impact would be on construction and development in this region. And you know, we just released the results of an economic impact study of the proposed Green Line, and it demonstrated 2.9 billion in economic output for the St. Louis region just in the construction years alone. And so, Vivian, I would really love to hear your perspective on what this project would do for construction and industry and jobs.
Well, thank you and good morning, everyone. I have a feeling that Talbe and Jared and Leslie all were sitting in my office when I was preparing my presentation, because a lot of what you talked about is exactly what I'm excited about. I'm excited for myself because this line comes down through Soulard. And this is where I live, and this is going to be important for me. I'm even more excited about the fact that it connects south to north and crisscrosses east and west, because the north and south corridors have, we have to admit, been a little neglected over the years. This is going to be a boon. Can you imagine the impact it's going to have on all of the population, the communities from the north to the south, that will have enhanced employment opportunities, training opportunities, enhancing the quality of life in general? I'm going to share my screen with you for a PowerPoint that we're going to breeze right through because we want to get to questions and answers a little bit sooner than later. Okay, and of course,
There we go.
am I sharing here?
You are sharing, Vivian. You're good.
I am, but we're not sharing where I want to.
Oh.
So I may have to go off screen and talk to you as well. This comes from having assistants that know what they're doing and not you.
So, Vivian, if you want to close out, Travis, would you like to pull up her presentation for her?
The presentation that he has, we're going to skip through some of the slides that we don't need.
That's fine.
All right, there we go. Now, can we manipulate this? All right. The beauty of large-scale transit projects. Well, I already explained the beauty that I see, that it's coming through my neighborhood and it's going to affect folks that haven't had an opportunity to be part of the fabric of revitalization up till now. I see this as being an incredible opportunity because of the billions that are coming into the region. We are talking about the Green Line, but there's so many other projects as well. We mentioned also the $3 billion worth of work that's going to be going on at the airport. There's also $4 billion worth of MoDOT work coming down the pike. We are overflowing with opportunities for generational wealth building and community revitalization and advancing the quality of life for everybody in the St. Louis region. Next slide, please. Community impact, you can see that as many of our presenters have already mentioned, that the development of transit-oriented communities is going to be key to promote a vibrant and useful neighborhoods. There's also the opportunity for mixed use development in those neighborhoods, which means that we're going not only to be able to work in construction, but create opportunities from that income and that revenue coming into those communities to expand the resources and the services that those communities will be able to take advantage of. Next. I'm also excited about the fact that with the advent of every new construction project, transportation and highway construction projects, that the construction industry is encouraged to develop new techniques to promote efficient delivery of our services, to reduce waste, and to improve the collaboration among the stakeholders throughout the project life cycle. Talby mentioned stakeholders, and one of the areas of work that we were involved in on the 270 project was community involvement, community engagement. It's very important that we have that buy-in. Next slide. So we're going to talk now about the job opportunities and economic impact. These projects serve as a catalyst for job creation and economic development. When we're talking about billions coming into a project, it doesn't just accrue to the companies and the owners, it accrues to the community and the services that support those communities. It also creates an extraordinary opportunity for diverse employment opportunities. Construction on its face is a male-oriented, Caucasian-oriented business. These kinds of projects, because there are sometimes goals and quotas that are attached to them, make it mandatory for diversity to be at the forefront of the hiring processes. And so that means that minorities and young people and women are going to be integrated into the construction industry in record numbers, as opposed to the mainstream idea of what a construction worker looks like. Leslie mentioned that her group is involved in training women for non-traditional work. We have women on the job in construction in almost every aspect of construction. And with the 270 project, the project manager for the entire $278 billion job was a woman, about 5'1", about 120 pounds soaking wet. And she handled her business like any man out there would have. Matter of fact, she handled her business better than a lot of the men that would have been out there. And if she can do it, just how many other women can follow in her footsteps? We are, I'm sorry, I get passionate when I start to think about the possibilities for work and the economic impact that this job will have on the construction community, on the St. Louis community. Next slide, please. Just think about this. Thousands of jobs are created with every construction project across the board. And you say, no, there's only 500 people out on the job site. That may be true, but there are also jobs that are created because there are manufacturing and supply chains and social services and economic services and academic services that also accrue to this kind of work. And so while we're thinking about the people that work for the owners or the contractors or the support services, we're also thinking about the jobs and the opportunities that are available to everyone that has to service those jobs. I have a project at Millstone Weber called Project PAVE, and we introduce the aspects of construction to high schoolers, 9th through 12th grade. And we have students that come in and say, well, Ms. Martin, I want to be part of your program, but I don't want to work construction, because they think that means being boots on the ground, getting dirty, inclement weather, and that sort of thing. Well, what do you want to do, I ask? Well, I want to be an attorney. Well, good. That's construction, because we get sued all the time. I want to be a doctor. Great, that's construction. We get hurt and need to be kept healthy all the time. Well, no, I want to be in culinary. Oh, that's great because we eat. And on and on and on. And so when you think in terms of a construction job, especially one this size, we're not just talking about the folks at Bi-State or the folks at CMT or the companies that'll be involved on the job. We're thinking about everybody that's a secondary, third, tertiary beneficiary of this kind of work. A 2022 survey by the American Public Transportation Association suggested that for every $1 billion invested in public transportation, approximately 50,000 jobs are supported in construction and construction-related fields. That's an incredible opportunity for everyone to see the benefit of this kind of income-generating project. Next slide, please. When we think of 50,000 jobs that need to be supported, where do these folks come from? What about the folks that are going to be on our north-south line? A lot of them probably won't be construction-oriented. They won't have the training. They won't have the exposure, the background, or the experience. That's where the skill development and training programs come in, such as MOCAN and BUD and the Construction Prep Center and Youth Build and those programs. That's where community colleges like St. Louis Community College Group that have construction and construction management classes and degrees going on, the vocational schools, the Rankins of the world. Those schools are going to be able to provide us the training and the resources that we need so that we can bring these people that live along those lines and in the St. Louis region into this project. 50,000 jobs will be supported. We will be instrumental in making certain that the folks who need it will be able to take advantage of it. We also are worried about workforce. There's a forecast that the workforce is dwindling and we're going to need more people. We're going to need more people and we're going to need more people. Yes, we will. I retired in February. Who takes my place? I was fortunate to find a really smart young lady to take my place. But who takes the places of those people that are aging out, that just want to retire? Because in construction, you are able to have more than just a job. You have a career, you have an opportunity for generational wealth building, and you have the opportunity to pass that along to your young people that come behind you. Those young people are graduating from high schools and from colleges, and we need them to be in the technical and engineering roles that are required in the transit industry. Our Project PAVE program at Millstone Weber, we have had 4 cohorts. 19 seniors have graduated from the Project PAVE initiative. Of those 19, 6 went to work directly with construction or construction-related companies. 6 jobs generated straight out of high school. The other went on to college, and every one of them went on to college on a scholarship that was made possible through generational and community generosity that made certain that anybody that wants to be in construction has the opportunity to do so. It is not unusual to have young people come into our program and say, I want to do one thing, and they leave us saying, we want to do something else. And that something else is construction. And in the scheme of things, the green line is going to be that well that they're going to be able to draw from.
Thank
you. Next slide. So the community economic benefits are, as you can see, we've talked about it before, revitalized communities, enhanced transit systems, and increased revenues in business, housing values, and overall economic activity. Next slide, please. The end goal for all of us, no matter what side of this construction job we sit on, is long-term job sustainability and economic growth for the community. It goes beyond the initial construction. It's ongoing jobs, and it's ensuring continued employment and economic stability in our communities. I'm again excited about the Green Line because the Green Line connects the north and the south and puts it on the main line.
Thank you, Vivian, for your comments this morning. Again, I hear you underscoring the impacts go well beyond that ride from point A to point B. And now we're talking about economic impact and economic opportunities and training and job opportunities. So thank you for your comment. So let's jump right in. And as a reminder to those attending this morning, please place your questions in the chat box or the Q&A. I did want to start with one question. This one, Leslie, goes to you. As a business owner on the ground in the neighborhood, what do you think will be critical to the success of this project at the neighborhood level? What do you need to see now for neighbors to get on board, and what long-term for the success of this project?
Thank you, Kim. I would say that sessions like these are very helpful. I'm a panelist, but I learned a lot today. I got some good information on the technical aspects of the project from Talby. So thank you for that. Now we'll be able to be an ambassador for the program to the neighbors who surround our campus, talk about it to our members. The one thing that I would also add is, like, our neighborhoods are destinations. St. Louis is a city full of great neighborhood destinations, green spaces, parks, organizations, small businesses, and improving accessibility to neighborhood destinations makes us a more vibrant city, a more vibrant community. I spent, the first part of my career in Washington, D.C., which has a really good public transportation system. And you can pretty much get to any neighborhood destination via public transportation in Washington, D.C. And so I have that same desire for St. Louis. And I know we can get there. I know the Green Line will help us get there. I think Vivian's comments around all of the points of intersection, north, south, east, and west, is something that, we have been missing as a community, and welcoming more visitors to our neighborhoods only enhances, the economic impact for small businesses in the region. So I think, continuing to talk about the project, sending all of our good energy to the federal government gods to make it happen. Because, for me, this is the next frontier for the city of St. Louis. And we need this to ensure that there's economic impact across the region.
Great. Thank you, Leslie, very much. Quick question came in, Talby or Jared. I think this could go to either one of you. What's the estimate for the time period of construction if in fact the region secures federal funding for the opening of the Green Line?
Well, I'm going to hedge a little bit on that one. Come on. But so right now, just in general timing, we are in the project development phase. So a design phase that must take 2 years, right? So you got to finish it in 2 years. We are moving into 30% design, and then we will advance from there. Then, assuming that we finish and get into finished design, a project like this can take 2 years at least, right? Obviously, you've seen it's extensive, and that's what I expect it to take. We'll have some options to compress that, which will help us quite a bit with costs. And these are options that are associated with utility relocations and so on. But but we need the project to mature more before I can really commit to those pieces. But in very general terms, that's where we are.
Great, thank you very much. So Jared, I think this one's for you. We know in 2017, the city voters passed a 0.5-cent sales tax to support the expansion of light rail in the north side, south side corridor. How long has that tax been collected and saved for Green Line expansion? And where are we right now with the funding that is saved? What are we at?
Thank you for that question, Kim. As you mentioned, voters overwhelmingly supported the expansion of North Side, South Side MetroLink, which we now call the Green Line. And to that, we have been able to accumulate several millions of dollars. I think around $60 million already. And we will continue to accrue ongoing money over probably about $14 million a year for ongoing expenses. So that money will be used for our local match to get this project moving, and in hopes of drawing down significant federal resources, which St. Louis has left on the table for over 20 years to do these types of large projects. Most people pay their federal taxes. It's only right that some of that comes back to St. Louis in the form of a transformational infrastructure project like the Green Line.
So Jared, what would that federal funding amount look like if we were successful during this project development phase?
So as it stands, about 60% of the project would be funded by the New Starts grant, and then you'd also have low interest bonds through the TIFIA program for about 20%. So you're looking at about 60% for the New Starts and 20% in low interest debt from the federal government as well. So they are an important player in the success of this project.
Great, thank you very much. So technical question, will the Green Line, when it's built, have transit signal prioritization? What would that look like with the in-street running trains?
Yes, that is a component we're looking at, and as part of the NEPA process, one of the ways to review some of the traffic impacts is the signal prioritization for these assets. Works much better that way, and it allows a certain flow between the normal traffic and street running in these systems. And look, these systems operate successfully all over the world. As a matter of fact, a good parallel system that I've seen recently is the Salt Lake system. That's a street running system, goes right through their downtown and on out to some very dense residential neighborhoods. They've had some real successful development there. And remember, and I can't help it, Kim, I'm gonna break the rules, but Jared's right. Remember, folks, we're competing for these federal monies. They've been going to other cities. They've been going to San Jose's and to New York's and to LA's. We have not been at the table for this money. So think of that, $600 million of federal money. It's our money, folks. Let's put it in St. Louis. Let's think about how we do something differently. This kind of project does that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shelby. So Vivian, let's go back to a little bit about what you were talking about. This is a large scale right now. It's about a $1 billion project. You touched on it a little, but do we have the workforce in St. Louis right now to take this project through construction? Or is that an opportunity for the region to build our workforce? What are we looking at?
We are looking at the opportunity to build a workforce. If, as Talby says, we are in the planning stages and we're 2 years away, we know this work is coming, and we can prepare our workforce and have them ready to go. And we have plenty of folks in the region that are able, ready, and willing to train and go to work. A lot of the folks, as Jared mentioned, folks sometimes don't work because they can't get there. But if you have an opportunity to work and you can get to work, there's no reason why we as a region cannot serve this job with the adequate workforce that's necessary.
Great.
And
Thank you.
we have very many, quite a few high quality training programs. As I mentioned before, MOCAN and BUD are two of them. So we should be at no shortage of um, workforce and never have to bring anybody in from outside.
Great. So we have been talking about the MetroLink Green Line, which is a light rail expansion project, but Toby, we want to know about the total transit system. So what happens if the MetroLink Green Line is successful? How does that impact the Metro bus service in this corridor that's already serving this area?
So that is absolutely right. So MetroLink is only one of several layers of transit options. Even with the expansion of this system, MetroLink only accounts really for about 30% of our ridership. Most of it is bus oriented. So what will happen, and we're required by the federal government, is that if we make this investment in MetroLink, we cannot reduce regular bus service, right? It has to be reconfigured so that they work together in a unified system. It's a really, really key component. So what we will redo is reconfigure some of those bus lines so they call at the MetroLink stations, for instance, on the Green Line, or for instance, as they do right now with major transfer stations. Some of those come to mind on the red and blue lines. Obviously, the Civic station's big transfer station onto bus. We have that at the Central West End station, by the way, our #1 station, and as an example in the county, Hanley. So this has to be kind of an integrated process where we are required by federal law not to reduce bus service at the expense, for MetroLink. We may not do that. So this is a service expansion. Yes, albeit rooted in MetroLink, but it will have positive effects on all of the system.
Okay, great. So there's a question about the federal funding process. You touched on that we're in project development. So when do we expect to know if we will be awarded federal funds for this project? There's some commentary on the fact that the North Side South Side corridor has been on the table for more than a decade, right? And so when would we know if we've been successful, and when would you be able to hit the ground running? This is looking into your crystal ball. So this is for the city and by state. What does that look like?
Well, blue skies is that in August of next year is the normal entry point where you ask for project rating. However, I will note that FTA, both from our local office in Kansas City and District 7 and DC, have been in town looking at this project, right? We had a great tour. Jared was part of that. We had a lot of the folks there, and because the project is generating a lot of interest, I think it's highly qualifying, especially because they want to target things that have an effect on the regular folks that we've talked about. So they're encouraging us even to apply for project rating on an off-cycle basis. And we think that we'll probably do that. But one of the things that we're waiting for is a new scoring criteria that has already been reviewed at FTA and by OMB, the Office of Budget Management. And they're talking about putting that into practice anytime. It is actually on pause now because of something that's going on in November, right? Everybody knows about that. But we expect that to be in the new calendar year, in which case we can apply for rating. FTA has to review that within essentially 60 days. And once we get that rating, we will get a score, which will allow us to talk about the federal funding queue. The federal funding queue, then, if we were to finish project development and we're 3 months into project development now, we would be able to finish that timing within 20 months. So optimistically, talking about going out for construction bids 20 months from now.
Okay. We have just a couple more questions, and then I want to keep us on time as much as possible, but I know that this is a topic that is of interest to many people. So you just touched on the federal funding process, and we've been talking about light rail. I know that there's questions circulating out there, and we're seeing them. Why light rail in this corridor? what is the reason for light rail? Jared, your boss touched on it. She views this as a transformational project, and now is not the time for BRT or other options. It is the time for light rail investment. Why light rail?
One, because the citizens of St. Louis overwhelmingly told us that they wanted light rail in 2017 with the vote of the people. And then two, light rail has a track record of not just getting people to and from places, not just getting people to opportunities, but also attracting economic development in a way that BRT does not. BRT routes can change, and light and train routes provide fixed routes that economic development professionals are attracted to, whether it's mixed use development and housing or businesses that want to be close to light rail developments. In a lot of other cities, one of the first things that you will see in a housing listing is how close it is to a metro, subway, or other light rail station. So both consumers and economic developers really do see the importance of fixed route light rail expansion.
Thank you. So you're in the middle of the NEPA process, and there's several questions, and I'm just going to address them all at once. So how will things like noise and impacts to historic neighborhoods and environmental, will those be addressed during the NEPA process?
Yeah, they absolutely have to be addressed and are ongoing, being addressed right now. And that's part of the federal process, and we'll go ahead and do that. I will note that we are kind of returning to the historic nature of many of these neighborhoods. Many of these neighborhoods 120 years ago were built around transit in a different form, albeit, I know, and that was taken out, I think mistakenly, in the 1960s. And now we're talking about returning to that normal historic nature, but with now modern consists, which are more efficient, they're cleaner, they don't make as much noise, and they operate better, especially as we do this. But also with the leadership of the mayor's office and the leadership of the overall city of St. Louis, we are talking about making zero acquisitions. We're talking about staying within the right-of-way. The right-of-way all along Jefferson Avenue is very generous. We're not talking about any adverse takings of property. And that's a very important tenet of the administration, and we intend on following it. And we think we can make it. Plus, it makes the project move faster, quite frankly. When you don't have any acquisitions to make, it makes it more affordable, and it's an easier thing to do. And sure, there's going to be some, look, these are good folks in neighborhoods who, who are concerned, who care about their neighborhoods. They have questions, and that's normal. We had these kind of questions in the red and blue line during their development. I have been in backyards talking to people, for instance, in Belleville about the impacts of that. And in the long run, what we saw was that this light rail had a very positive impact on the long-term viability of the neighborhoods and the cities that they are in. I believe in those principles, but I also still believe in the principles of good, honest folks who live in those neighborhoods as well, who need to be talked to and talked through these ideas. They're not going to like every single part of it. I get it. But I will be honest with them. We'll continue to meet with them. And these are good folks who deserve to be talked to and worked through a project like this.
Thank you, Toby. So finally, as we wrap this morning, I think it's really important when we do these talking transits, we want to leave our listeners and participants and any of those individuals who listen to our recording later on. What is your key takeaway you want our audience to walk away with this morning from our talk today? Who would like to jump in first? Anyone?
I'll go.
Okay, Leslie, great.
I would say, the key takeaway is opportunity to access, and that neighborhoods have to become destinations. And so the Green Line will allow for both of those things to happen: access to opportunity and neighborhoods as destinations.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. Anyone else want to jump in with your key takeaway?
Um, This is Vivian, and I think there's concern about the system coming through the north-south corridor. And as Tolby mentioned, this isn't new to North St. Louis. Uh, if anyone remembers, there was a line called the Holdemont line. That was the last one that was in operation here in St. Louis. It was shut down, and it was sorely missed when it was shut down. And I think it will be greatly received when this line comes through North St. Louis from South St. Louis. It cannot be anything, as Leslie said, but a win-win for the community.
Great. Thank you, Vivian. Jared or Tolby, any last remarks?
Sure. I want to echo Vivian and Leslie's remarks in the sense that we can't be afraid to grow, and we have to be relentless about providing both our current residents and hopefully our new residents with access to opportunities. And you cannot do that without public transportation and without expansion of MetroLink.
Great. Tolby?
I promise I'll go fast.
Okay.
Economic equity. That's what this is about. So remember, Bureau of Labor Statistics, everybody knows what the number one cost to our normal citizens is. It's housing. But what's number two? Number two is transportation. And what, gosh, Leslie and Vivian have so eloquently talked about is that this is about people and getting people to that access in their neighborhoods, sending them to work. Our current folks who are on MetroLink and MetroBus right now, 81% of them are going where? They're going to work, folks. And they said this is the magic, the number one word in DC. What are the three number one words in DC for both Democrats and Republicans? Jobs, jobs, jobs. Getting people to jobs and getting people to work on tremendous assets like this. I think we're talking about both things. Let's bring it home for St. Louis.
Great. Thank you, Tolby. So again, we've talked about, this is not a quick decision on the part of the federal government. This isn't a quick project, but the impacts of investment in this project could be transformational. So I want to thank you again to all of our speakers and all of you who have joined us this morning. This information from this webinar, including a recording of the discussion, will be available on our website later this afternoon. So that would be cmt-stl.org if you're interested in additional information. As we challenged everyone at our annual meeting this year, for transit to be a success, we need all of you to support it, whether you ride it every day or not. So find out how you can get more involved on our website. And if you're not a member of CMT, please consider joining us today. Make it a great one. And thank you everyone for joining us this morning.